Hey, how are you? It's me, Kirsten. This is the It's Giving Mystical Man podcast, and this is your weekly card for the week of September 22nd, sliding into this weekend, sliding into the end of September. Man, I know, I see you. This past week, hermit, tower, death, it's happening. So many things are happening, and I don't care what people's lives look like on social media or out in the shiny world. People are going through some deep transformation, some awakening, some awareness. Something that really stuck out with me last week in that reading, that channeling, was you don't find peace through fortification. You don't find strength through fortification. You don't find illumination, freedom, joy, openness, life, light through fortification. So I know in the world, like in the 3D, here, now, alive world, it can feel like when these things get shifted, when these fortifications get tapped on, knocked down, dismantled, it can feel like, what the fuck? Excuse my language, but what the fuck, right? Like, what? Leave me alone, man. Like, leave me alone. It can be really hard to see. But something that Jessica Lanyadoo said in her astrology podcast this week really stuck with me as well. This idea that the small movements, the small progress, that matters. And when you're making small progress around core wounds, around deep wounds, that's huge. It's monumental. I think that might have been the word she used, monumental. So please take a moment and just feel wherever you are in this deathing process, in this liberation process, whether you're in like the holding on by the fingernails, please make it stop, or you're in the open your heart to the sky and say, thank you, Sky Daddy, for all the lessons. Like wherever you are in that process, here, be grateful for what has gotten you here. Be aware of how these little incremental, degree-like micro shifts in your awareness, in your body, in your practice, in your expression, in your breath, how those can mean such monumental changes in your life and in the way you show up and the way you're able to ground into this moment where all of it exists. That can sound really theoretical, and it's not. It's not theoretical. These are real dismantlings happening right now, and they are really for a more authentic, integrated, integrity-based way of living. And you want that because that allows more light to come through. That allows more love, more joy, more awareness, more presence to channel through this body. Every way that you are fortified, every way that you are holding on to these core woundings or these habitual patterns, it's just these major constrictions, and less light can flow, less love can flow. I hope you can feel that on some level. For me, the experience of this past week was a beautiful reminder that the illumination can come when we least expect it. And the call in September, if you remember, was to pay attention. There's something about that sweet awareness and attention that you're bringing to what's happening in your life, to any discomfort, to any excitement, to any movement at all. Just like slowing it down and awareness of, what is this? Like, I'm going to pay attention to this. Hearing messaging come in, I'm going to pay attention to that. There's something really cool about this energy of paying attention and how it's allowing for the dismantling to happen in a way that serves us more fully, that offers us more ease. There's just a lot happening. There's a lot happening. You are not alone in that. That is just, it's everywhere, man. It's everywhere. So I hope you have the support you need, the practices you need, the love you need, the groundingness, I hope your instincts are awake and aware of what you need in this moment. And I hope you're giving it to yourself with a lot of love and a lot of compassion. Okay, the card I pulled for us this week is the Strength card. Let's remember that was the energy of August. Let's remember that's the energy of 8, the infinity. The idea that our spiritual yearnings and desires and journeys are only as real, only as impactful as the ways that they are integrated into our body. There's also a conversation around the Strength card, which we didn't really have in August, but it's an important one. And that has to do with this distinction between strength and power and control and magnetism and surrender, and how all of those things work together. There's so much to unpack in that, but I will just offer that as the thing that is going to be present with us this week. It's very much space around the sacral chakra. So remember the sacral chakra, that beautiful orange, creative, delicious light that lives in your belly. that lives in your womb space, whether you're a man or a woman. So many interesting things I could say about this. But the energy of the sacral is I create, I desire. So I make art and I make love from this place. I make art and I make love from this place. Can you feel what that's like? What's your reaction to hearing me say that? If I'm like, are we making love? Are we making art? Are you like, yes, of course we are? Or are you like, not right now? Or are you like, oh, that's kind of scary. What is she talking about? Or who knows what your reaction is, but like, pay attention, track that. Let's track that together. If I say to you that there is an importance, a weight, a spiritual significance, a mystical significance to your sacral chakra, to your ability to open to the flow of life that comes through the root, to say to you, what kind of art are you going to make? What kind of love are you going to make? How are you going to share your essence with the world in a way that's playful and feels good and is sexy and pleasurable and vibrant? That all comes through in the sacral chakra, and the strength card is very much this week associated with that energy. We talked in August about the idea of allowing the impulses that come down from spirit to be equally heard and played with and manipulated with, but like in the fundamental sense of manipulation, played with your fingers, move with your hands. This energy of the beautiful life, earth, sexy energy that comes up through our feet, through our root chakra. How the practice, the dance that we're all yearning for is this tantric weaving of the spiritual and the material. That all of it is sacred, that all of it matters. And there's a fullness to my experiences as a human I don't want to miss. You don't want to miss it. Don't want to miss a thing. So when the strength card comes up, where are you making art? Where are you making love? How can you honor what that means? How can you honor the gift that is, the uniquely human experience of making art and making love? Can you feel how those two things are either present in your life, are missing in your life? How there might be ways you want to bring more of that energy to certain spaces, relationships, projects, work, your own heart, your own movements, your own sensuality. I'm working with a teacher I think I've mentioned before. His name is Cass Phelps, and one of the things that we're working on are these principles he has. This idea of power as a core principle is a really interesting exploration that I'm undergoing with him, and I'll tell you that power for me lives in the bowl of my belly, like the lower into my hips, that lower place. And this is a power that is very different from force. It's very different even from strength. It's a type of grounded flow. And for me, it feels like a river. And I've experienced that river since I first started doing this. Like when I was getting attuned to Reiki for the first time, studying hypnosis for the first time, I always came back to this river. And the strength card is the reminder that there's a movement and an unfolding and a co-creation that you really don't have to do that much with. The power that comes from paying attention, the power that comes from magnetism. What my mom used to always say about the strength card was this idea of leading the wild beast, leading your desires, leading your wildness with a chain of roses. In this card, you kind of feel these two archetypes around Virgo energy, the virgin, the woman in her own, the woman who keeps to her own, and the Leo energy, the lion energy. Heat, the desire, the wildness of the lion is harnessed by the sweetness, by the gentleness, by the chain of roses that the maiden holds in her hands. It's an interesting way to think about where you're putting your energy in a way that feels like power or feels like strength or feels like control. If it's a leaning forward, if it's a grasping, if it's a heading towards, is that really you and your power? Is that really you and your strength? I know I talk a lot about this leaning back, leaning forward, but we really don't have an appreciation. We are an active culture. We are a culture that leans forward, that moves forward, that works hard, that moves to fix and do and get involved, like get in it in the world. And so much of the work in terms of coming into your fullness is to become aware of your side body, become aware of your back body, become aware of, and I talked about it last week, like what do you lean back on? When things are crumbling, when you're not sure, and this kind of false sense of individuality that you maybe leaned on, and me too, this isn't you're doing it, like we're all doing it. It's the ego, it's the world that we live in, it's this alpha alert mindset that we hold as best in our culture. But this idea of leaning back, what do you lean back on? What happens when you let the world come to you? What happens when the things that you want to kind of trigger you to lean in and get going with, if you lean back in that space instead? It's not easy, but it's very rewarding. There's a sense of, oh wait, look, it's not just me. And oh wait, look, I'm grounded into something much, much bigger and more dynamic and more appealing and more loving than I realized was possible. All of that comes up in the Strength card. And this is another one of those. It's interesting that we had the Death card and the Strength card. And when I'm channeling these major arcana cards for you guys, I get lost. Like I'm like, did I just make any sense at all? And I have to have a lot of faith that there's something in here that you needed to hear. The Strength card really is about this idea of making art, making love, and that is enough. Think about what's compelled you in your life. Think about the things that have compelled you. They draw you in, right? Think about something you've ever wanted. A person, a job, a place, a placement, an adventure, a feeling. It like pulls you, like you can feel it pulling you. Just notice where that comes up this week. That's that golden light that came up in the September reading, and it's very much present in the Strength card. The Strength card is a yellow golden deliciousness. What's calling you? What's pulling you? Honor that magnetism, and also notice the ways that you have the power to pull towards you. So in this week ahead, we're going to really play with this active, passive, receptive, magnetic place of power. If you kind of lean back and ride the river, where does it take you? Where does it take you? If you kind of feel into what's pulling you from your belly towards it, where do you go? If you feel yourself leaning in to fix something or make it better, what can you lean back on instead? Where can you stay curious about what might be happening here? There's something a little toxic about how we lean in, a little toxic about how we rush in. What's happening if you don't do that? What does the world look like if you don't do that? All of that comes up with the Strength card. There's a lot of sensuality in this card, a lot of, I wouldn't even say sexiness. It's a more wider sensuality. What does that feel like? And what does that taste like? And what does that smell like? And there's a way in which that becomes its own exploration in terms of whatever you're dancing with. Can you get kind of more sensory about it, more sensual about it? And there's something to be said about that. There's something asking for your play, saying like, come play with this, come feel this, particularly in these realms of making art and making love. The last thing I'll say is that 8 energy is about manifestation. It's about bringing something from the ethereal into the material, into the real world. Let's see what happens. If we kind of track what we've been going through in September and last year, which felt like last week, which felt like a year. Last week, there was all this kind of crumbling away. You could kind of feel this new skin emerging. This is the week for you to really explore what it's like to move in the world in that new skin. What feels good about that? What is alive and awake in that? And what's to be enjoyed in that? Remember that you will get on these tracks. You'll have this idea that this is a thing you want, or a thing that you're headed towards, or a thing that you're working towards. And you will just head towards it. And sometimes the world has to stop you with a brick wall to get you to reconsider whether you still want to be moving towards that thing. Something about that is coming up. Just check in with yourself. What are you moving towards, and is it still what you want? Is it still what feels right for you? If you are moving through the world in this new skin, does this new version of you, does this like vibrant, sensual version of you, what is it asking for? What is it moving towards, and why? And is it still right? There's something about that question, like what you are busying yourself with, where you are making your love and making your art, is it still right? Something to think about. Feels like a big question. We don't even see our habitual movements because they're so habitual. So there's an opening this week of like, all right, I've been kind of moving on a track towards that thing, towards that goal, towards that person, towards that project, towards that work, towards that art, towards that connection. Is that still right, or am I moving out of habit? That's an important question to ask this week. All right, cool. Just like, let's just get deep, and then like, hey, let's just pop back out again. Oh my God. I'm just holding all of you, with all of you, and along for the ride with all of you. Strength week in the midst of all of this feels hopeful, feels exciting, feels like, right, this is why I put up with all that shit. This is why I work so hard. This is why I stay with myself even when it's uncomfortable. This is why I stay with my practices even when I doubt them or I'm unsure if they work. I stay with it. I pay attention. And sometimes it feels good. And sometimes I'm awash in golden light that makes me want to make love and make art. And that is a good thing, man. That is a good thing. Sending you all that golden loveliness shining down in your life, calling to your heart, pulling you forward with a kind of effortless sensuality. Yes, this is where my body wants to be. Let me enjoy it fully. All right, big hug. Check you later. Bye. It's giving everything is sacred. It's giving art. It's giving light you up and turn you on and set you free. It's giving curiosity. It's giving freedom. It's giving love. It's giving you are more magical and powerful than you can comprehend. It's giving, I don't know what's happening, but I am so here for it. It's giving you are pure potential. It's giving mystical.